All right, welcome to this week's episode of Think Sales Live. Jeff Gunsberg and I are looking forward to talking with Blake George, founder of BMG Media. Blake, it's good to see you. I mean, I know your work. I've worked with you before. You've been on the show a bunch of times, so I'm glad you're here to talk to us about really social media, websites, and to me, this decade is about e-commerce.
Right.
One of the things that COVID did was it got everybody to 2020. A lot of people, I think, were stuck in 1998, 2005, 2008, and kind of a lot of people were settling at like 2012. And it caused everybody to get current. And to me, we're in an e-commerce world right now. Whether you're a professional service firm or whether you are selling any type of widget anywhere in the world. So I'm glad to have you on the show because I think your business is so critical to every business, period, the end. And so can you talk a little bit about just kind of websites, social media? I mean, we're going to dive into the nooks and crannies, but just how you see the world adjusting or needing to adjust post-COVID.
Absolutely. So first off, thanks for having me back. It's been great. So post-COVID, we've obviously been much busier in the digital world. And what's happened is you mentioned, e-commerce is big. Depending on the industry, different things, right? Healthcare, telemedicine, in the restaurant and the retail space, it's curbside pickup and delivery. So we really just see a push for, obviously less touch points and less interaction between humans and convenience. What's going to be the most convenient? You got parents stuck at home with their kids because they don't, they're working from home. Schools are open, closed, and I think it changes every day. There's not many places to take some of those responsibilities you had previously, and now you have new responsibilities on top of it. So everything has to be quick, easy. You saw pre-COVID, the Instacarts of the world, the DoorDash is really ramping up because just made things easier, right? Yeah. And someone told me a long time ago, if you want to be a billionaire, just make people lazier. That's the goal. Yeah. And it really shows throughout time. The easier you make things for people, the lazier they can become. You got a winner, unfortunately, whether that's good or bad. But so that's where we're pushing mostly. You mentioned social media as well. Staying current, getting the messaging out there. We see it a lot again with the retail clients, specifically in the restaurant and the services businesses. They have to get the message out to the clients, to their clients, letting them know, things are safe. Here's what we're doing. If there's an issue that arises, which we've had a few clients that had issues, this is what we're doing to handle these issues. And, building that trust and positivity in such a negative kind of world right now gives you kind of that edge, the next step.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about, reaching people and, certain categories and, of those folks. How are you, and what I do, it's so important for me to talk to my sales team about targets, and figuring out, where's the right place to go, at this particular time, the appropriate way to sell and have all those, things kind of front of mind. How are you, what are the types of people that you are targeting during this particular time, that you feel can benefit from your services, and how are you, reaching out to them?
Yep. So what we've seen actually is a lot of is two parts. The immediate need of like the restaurants and the services businesses that had to change because their business is relying on it right now. Yeah. And then on the opposite side, we see businesses who are pretty stagnant or not even open investing in their website because now they finally have the time. So the really interesting thing was we've had clients reach out to us, for years, and it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm too busy. Not to name names, but there's one on this call, Jeff Gunsberg. Perfect time, kind of same thing, right? We'll get to it. And, now's the time, right? So things slow down. You have less responsibilities. People aren't emailing you 100 times a day. You don't have meetings set up. So you can allocate different resources to different times to get things done, which is great. Some businesses are going to sit there and complain and not do anything. And others are going to be proactive, knowing that this is just temporary. And what do we do to keep moving? Yeah. So it really shows the strength of some entrepreneurs versus others. In my opinion, you see the guys that, have it and have the drive to get it done and are taking those investments, and in long term, it'll pay off for them.
Yeah. One of the things, like a couple comments on that is I think moving forward, we're going to see companies, I hope we see companies all looking at their business plan. One, I think every company should be doing a new 3-year vision business plan from today moving forward. That should have been done in March. But looking at their business plan and saying, okay, are we current? Are we ahead of real time with this, and this? Because what you're saying is the power of getting people foot traffic to your site, to pick up the phone, to call you, to email you. That is critical. You know, your comment on laziness. There's a lot of truth to that. I'll just redefine it one way, which is giving people more time to do the critical activities that they need to do without getting bogged down. Right. So, you know, so to me, just a comment on one more comment on that is I think it's critical for every business owner, and I see this in companies all over the country who aren't today taking their plan B, C seriously and getting current and spending the time to create that business plan with very specific and measurable goals, of which one very critical part is what you do. Right. And so I'm just going to echo what you're doing and back that it is critical that people, my point is, find the time. You got to find the time. So there's no more excuses of not finding the time. But I do want to talk about e-commerce and restaurants for a quick minute because, you know, I've read a couple studies and seen a couple of things that by the time COVID is over, 53% of restaurants will be gone. And I think that, and my heart goes out to the small retail people and the restaurants that are not only struggling today, but we haven't even seen really the second wave. And so what can those people do when it comes to e-commerce and website as far as reinventing themselves?
Yep, absolutely. So I'm part of my portfolio is in the restaurant industry as well, in 3 restaurants. So I understand the space, fast-tracked it mostly during COVID pretty well. And my father, when I made these investments, pretty funny. He said, "Congratulations and my condolences." And now I really understand why. You know, it's a very, very tough business. And the biggest issue with restaurants is not the operator itself. It's more down to the staffing. Nobody can get anybody to work, which is why these restaurants mostly are closing. You know, during COVID, a lot of the fast casuals actually increased in business. I remember talking to the guy from Boneyard Restaurant, you know, obviously local favorite. He said he's never been busier because they pivoted, you know. Yeah. So, you know, people knew what they want. You know, in COVID, the key was if you had carry out before, you were busy because people were waiting for your food. They knew what to expect. If you were new to the game and didn't have carry out, you know, no one really knew you were there, right? So that's when they relied on us more is push it out, push it out, push it out, push it out. So one of our restaurants, Adachi in Birmingham, I think I mentioned on the show before, they had no carry out before because they're more of like a fine dining restaurant in Birmingham. Great location, great food, great everything, but they never had the need for carry out. It was too difficult. Post-COVID, they switched. We put a mobile app together, online ordering, which is, you know, to that e-commerce aspect you're talking about. I mean, sales were off the hook. So it really showed how much support people had for not only the restaurant, but, you know, that technology. I mean, if you think about it, if you had that a year ago, right, pre-COVID, you know, you kind of left a lot of money on the table. So it really opened the business person's eyes, the restaurateur's eyes, like, okay, what else can we do, right? So now a lot of guys are stubborn. They don't want to make the investment. And then when they see it pay off, it's like, here's my checkbook. What's next? And that's where we really have to get, you know, innovative and see, you know, what else we can do to drive some traffic and get some business for the restaurants. But one cool thing we did for the restaurants, a friend of mine, Elliot, who's a vice president of Beyond Juice, called me when COVID happened and said, "Hey, these restaurants are starving. It's terrible. You know, we're all in this together. I want to build a website to tell people in the area what's going on, who's open, who's not, who has carry out, who's doing grocery service." That was big for a minute. So we put a website together called Detroit Food Updates, which now, you know, isn't as relevant because everybody's mostly open. But we had amazing traffic and people, we were getting comments all the time. "Thank you so much. We want to support local and support these restaurants." So, you know, the people are out there to go to these restaurants. You know, I wish more staff was available for these restaurants because that's, you know, the heartache, it seems. And, you know, again, just getting the message out, letting people know you're there. Yeah, I think a lot of restaurants went from having 30 things on the menu to 10 great things. and doing it well to be more efficient and kind of control their food costs, because that's where they get eaten up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of what I hear you talking about is pivoting and figuring out, a way to, make this particular time work for you. And the successful people are, are finding ways to fine tune themselves and change things. And just like you're saying, it's like, and I've found this in my business, like, why wasn't I doing this the entire time? Like, I don't even understand why, like, what was how did I not see that? Everybody kind of caught up in their day to day, and they're just moving along, and sitting down and just taking some time to figure those things out and look for new ways is great. So I commend you on that. On the web side of things, how have you guys, in your sales, pivoted to change kind of with the times, and exactly, what are the steps that you're talking to your folks about? We're selling.
So in the beginning of COVID, what happened was we got a lot of, hey, we have to update our websites, not necessarily redo them, but just post messages, let people know, change hours, kind of just basic maintenance so that people, kind of delayed on. So that was part one, or I would say like phase one of the business. Phase two was, hey, I'm stuck in the 80s or 90s, what do I need to do? Right. So, in our business, luckily, all the business comes to us. We don't really market out. But if we were to market out, I think the manufacturing companies are the big, the low hanging fruit right now, because they're kind of stopped for the most part, and they have larger budgets and need to kind of come up to today's age. They're not necessarily technologically advanced on the website. So manufacturing is a huge portion of our latest inquiries of people who are running, business for automotive and those different industries. Aerospace, obviously, getting killed. So those guys are really at a standstill and sitting back and saying, okay, what's next? Because they're sitting on millions of dollars in inventory, millions of dollars in machines, and no pipeline of business. So that's where they can kind of allocate some resources to say, hey, we're ready to go. So that's our target market. If we were to market what we tell our sales team, these are the clients I think we need to go after right now.
Yeah. I want to talk about just what makes a powerful website. To me, one of the things that is critical is, especially now during COVID, whatever you're doing from a marketing and social media standpoint, double it. Even if you're doing a ton, double it. And to me, content is king, right? I mean, and there's so many different variations of how people define content. But can you talk a little bit about content, how often it should be updated, how to position yourself as a thought leader, how to position yourself as an expert, how to get, this is a bunch of questions in one thing, but I think they're all relevant, and how to push people from social to your website and the portal that your website needs to be.
Absolutely. So, looking at different industries, obviously it changes. What we saw in COVID, which I was really impressed with, is the head chefs, right? The executive chefs, the famous chefs, what they would do is they would go record content. Hey, here's how to make our favorite dish. Here's how to make our favorite drink, and then sell the kits to do it at home. Because, at that point, restaurants were closed across the country. And, tying in social media, right? Here's the video that we posted on social media. Spend some money boosting that so that people see it, and then lead them to your website to purchase the kit. Yeah. So that's the full circle of getting, from no business in the restaurant to, kind of educating your clients to selling them something so you can make some money back on it, and then continuing your brand and pushing it out. In other industries, what you would see, it's tough, because a lot of them were really closed down. So, you look at like the Goldfish swim schools, which I'm involved in, trampoline parks, anything entertainment for kids that is still pretty much shut down. It's more so, hey, we're still here, continuous branding, making sure people know that when we do reopen, if we haven't already, it's safe. Here's the precautions we're putting in place, and continuously, like you're saying, double or triple your advertising spend so people know you're there and relevant, and just continuously to put it in your mind. Because I truly think at some point, and I don't know when, there's going to be the switch from everyone's really scared to what's COVID, right? We're going to forget about it. So when that switch happens, and this, horrible year that we're going through shrinks down to, I remember that like 3 bad days that we had regarding COVID, right? This natural human thought process. I think at that point, we are going to see a huge jump in everything. And if you're not prepared to get back in business right then, you miss the boat on all these opportunities.
Right.
And now it's scary. It's a big ask, right? You're asking people to spend money that they don't have or they don't see coming in. So, it goes back to your 3-year plan.
Yeah.
When we look at, our Goldfish swim schools, for example, in the whole country, it's a business that you look at for 5-10 years of potential cash flow investment. You're not making money year one. So, luckily our schools were, they weren't mature. They were very early on. And Jeff and I have a very good friend has multiple schools as well. And the thought process is the same. We know it's going to come back. We're taking a bath right now, but continues to invest because this is our business. We have a lot invested in it, and we know long-term it works. They've already proven the model, and it's just a matter of time before everybody comes back. So if you get lazy now, your schools are just going to decline and your investment is declining at the same time.
Right.
So, continuously push, get out there and do whatever you can, support local and, support other businesses so they see, these brands with, the leaders during COVID and help people out, builds a lot of trust and gets people in the doors long term.
Yeah, Goldfish. Both my kids learned how to swim at Goldfish. I think it's an incredible company. Chris and Andrew are, they're great business owners. I've had them on the show. Beyond Juice guys on the show.
Great, yeah.
And Adachi guy on the show. So I just want to make a comment just to plug them because they all are so impressive and they have great insight to say. Yeah. But I agree, out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind, and people will forget about you.
Totally.
Yeah. Memory is, that short-term memory goes definitely for sure. But to comment too to what you're saying, and I've had this conversation, with Brian too. Listen, people need to learn how to swim.
Yeah,
that's not going to change. And this little blip on the radar, it's terrible right now, and it just sucks.
Yeah.
It is a blip on the radar, and figuring out a way to come through it and do that is great. So
yeah, and the hardest part for all businesses, and what's really terrible, and it sometimes trickles down to web, but it doesn't affect us as much as, depending on the local politics or the state, what happens is, if a governor opens up the state or plans on opening, there's a lot of ramp up for a lot of businesses. Restaurants have to hire staff, swim schools have to hire staff, retrain, spend money before they can open the doors. And what happened is, they do this, and then all of a sudden, hey, by the way, you can't open anymore, or we're delaying it, or X, Y, and Z. And that's big money, that's being spent and that goes out of the door. I feel terrible for the fitness centers and all these other guys that are on the residual model as well, that this just can't open. They have nothing in sight. Movie theaters, I just mentioned the news, maybe theaters are going to open up. I mean, you give nobody a plan, and I get it. There's no perfect answer, but it's really a tough position for these guys to be in. Nothing against politics. I don't get into politics at all, but it's just where we're at in the environment is we need some sort of answers or guidelines. Like, here's the drop dead date that you'll be open, so plan on it. And hopefully it's earlier or something like that, because I don't know from a business standpoint, just looking at my portfolio, if I had to deal with that, I don't know how I would, because there's just too many unknowns. I mean, you're better off just staying closed.
Right. And I see that out there, so many people, so many restaurants, companies, what have you, have just remained closed. And when I look at them, just restaurants in particular, there's certain restaurants I drive by, I'm like, why, how are they not open? That just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. And it goes back to that. Sometimes people are not as nimble on their feet and figure out a way to do things and switch gears and pivot like that. And, they all of a sudden just can't figure it out. So they just remain closed because they don't know how to do it.
The biggest issue, whether right or wrong, because I don't know the statistic if it helped or hurt, but from the business side, it definitely hurt, was, getting the unemployment to the level that it was at, where people were making more money than what they previously were.
Yeah, terrible.
What do you expect? I mean, why would people go back to work? So, it's tough because people do need it. I think people definitely took advantage of it. I don't know overall, when you look at the whole picture, was it helpful or not? Was it helpful to me and my businesses? Absolutely not. Maybe to the whole world, sure. But that's the toughest business. How do you get employees and tell them, here's what you're making, I'll pay you a little more, but I can't match this salary. It's just not realistic.
Right. So I just want to shift gears. Great topic though. It's always good stuff to talk about. I want to switch to unique ability. So, I've had websites done, numerous times, and I've had some rough experiences along the way, which is why we, came to you is, most companies put together a template, kind of for sites. Right. And I know you don't do that. And that's, a reason, that we come to you. How do you encompass and and feel, the voice of a company and kind of create that unique ability, for them?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we don't, like you said, we do everything custom. We don't use any pre-made templates. So most companies out there do the pre-made template style. And the reason is very simple. It's cheap. It's fast. It's already there. They look great. Right. But you get 80% of the way and then realize, the last 20% is more custom and can't be done, and which causes the problems. Yes. You're stuck with it. Can't fix it. We get these emails all the time. So in our case, I think the success that I've had has been because growing up in an entrepreneurial family, I've touched and been in every industry possible for the most part. So when I sit in meetings and when I talk to different clients, I already know what they need pretty much before they do, or at least I would like to think so. So, I hear their ideas. I hopefully make them better because, hey, I've already, maybe done a title company before, or I understand that part of the business. So here's what would be really cool. Or, here's what we did in the scrapyard industry, which is totally irrelevant to the title business. But, this feature would work really well because it worked really well for them. So, my cross knowledge of all industries really helps me build a unique solution for everybody. A lot of companies go out there and, which is not a bad thing. They go after a niche, industry. I always thought that doing that is great if you had a solution, but you really never see outside the box. You're always going to be stuck doing the same thing over and over. And, 5-10 years are going to go by and you be successful, but you didn't realize how to pivot into anything new because you were so stuck on what you always did for those clients and what they want. Healthcare's been, and the insurance industry has been like that forever. People are niche in those industries and they don't really change. In my business, again, going through all these different industries, you learn something new from everybody. It's wild. Yeah. And, things you never really saw. And it's very interesting. And I always like seeing things. So when a manufacturing client calls me, my first thing is, when can I come check out the facility? I want to know everything about it. I want to know what machines you use. I want to see how the process works, because not only is it interesting to me, but I could think, hey, it'd be really cool to show a video of this, right? When you go into a kitchen, you want to see fire. You don't care if somebody's salting a steak. You want to see the fire. You want to see things moving around. And, that's where you could see the vision of, all right, this video needs to, showcase this. And that's what we're going to put on the homepage and get people excited. What people want to see. Right. So, I think that's, our unique niche. And to make things really more unique is, again, just understanding their business so that you can try to put yourself in their shoes. In our job, I'm a translator. I translate from business to, coding language. I understand business, I understand the coding language, and I'm your translator in between. So we're going to architect a solution similar to, our industry is no different than the construction industry. You have your general contractors, you have your architect, right? And you have your developers, and then you have, maybe the investors. So we play the role of that architect. We kind of manage, or that general contractor, we manage the whole process, know what to do and get it done. We see your vision, we build it.
Yeah. And, just like a comment to that too, that you mentioned, and I made the mistake. And I think the way that you just laid it out kind of proves the point, is that this is one of those things. It's like, you hire a contractor at your house. I want to pay. Like, I've had so much experience with bad, cheap contractors where it's like, listen, I want to pay more. Who is somebody who will be fair with me, but charge me a price that's like, listen, I know that this guy knows what he's doing. He has faith in his work and he values himself, which is why he's not charging me half of what this guy's charging me. When you get these templated websites and you do things, in that manner like that, you don't get somebody who's trying to see the vision of your company and learn about you and understand you and how you operate so that they can best portray you, on your site. So I commend you for that. And that's the reason
there's one other layer too I want to mention is, we've been in business now for 10 or 11 years. And obviously starting off, new guys, do things inexpensively just to get our feet wet, right? But now we've made things so efficient from doing so many websites. Just like a contractor. A lot of contractors are great, but if they've never built a bathroom before and it's their first one, and they're normally commercial guys, you can only expect so much, right? So in our case, we've made efficiencies so that we can build websites faster and better than other people because we already know how to do it, right? We've done it 100 times, whether it's in your industry or not in your industry, we've already done it. So what takes us, an hour might take other guys 4 or 5 hours. And that's where the frustration comes in, because this should be so easy, right? But it's not. And you go back to the guy and say, I don't understand. Why is this taking so long? Why have you not finished this? And that's, a lot of frustrations business owners have with people because they just want to get it done.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn my camera. The sun is coming right at me here.
Don't worry.
So Blake, I want to ask you a couple questions. I love everything you just talked about. But I want to talk about something that I find sometimes gets people stuck. Those are you have the sun, I have my dogs, but
you got some kids back here that are.
Yeah, you to hear my son's upstairs.
I want to talk about the content, right? So I think some of the things that holds people back is, who's going to write my content? Who's going to write my homepage? Who's going to write everything? Who's going to update and help me write the blogs? Who's going to, ... And so what kind of team do you put together, or resources do you refer out to your clients? Because to me, that's the biggest stuck that people kind of get stuck in. And there's so many easy solutions for it, right? Like you're talking about, it can take you when you can make it so simple, it's actually complicated. It's a great thing. So what do you do in that realm?
Absolutely. So actually content is probably one of our, worst points in our business. And I'll explain why. Originally we said, okay, some people want content. So, smaller businesses need help with content. So we hire on a content writer. It's hard to take that content writer and actually profit off of that employee because there wasn't enough work. Because what happened was the smaller guys need it, but the larger guys all have it in-house.
Right.
So, they work with internal companies or third-party companies that have their own brand guidelines, so they provide us the content, where we had an employee sitting on the sidelines, not able to do anything. So that situation we deal with. In addition, if some companies need help with content, what we do now is we say, okay, here's what we would do. We can't tell you, the history of your business, only you know that. But if you can put that chicken scratch together, we have a few freelancers that we'll work with to make it happen. Now, the other tricky part is just like design, content is very unique in the fact that there's a certain voice, there's a certain styles that certain people want, right? Obviously in healthcare, some people want to go scientific. Others want to go very fun and easy to digest. So we have to find the right writer to help that client out, which sometimes pays off and sometimes it doesn't. So, a lot of times now we're saying, let's step back. We're going to focus on design and development. Here's the content writers we can refer out. But just so we're very transparent with the client, it's a two-way street. They have to provide some sort of content so we know what's going on. We'll make it better, and then we'll help them grammatically. Other times what we do is some people say, you know what, I really just don't know what I want. I can write whatever you want. I just don't know what, how much, where it needs to go. So what we'll do is we'll actually design the page out with Latin text placeholders, say, this is what we would do. How about you fill in the content here? And people say, got it. You'll have it this weekend. And they just type it up. We copy and paste. So each situation is different. Now that we're working with larger companies, we don't run into it as much because, again, they're providing the content. They have hundreds of employees that, have the resources. But for the startups and the smaller guys, for sure, we have to, hold their hand a little more and make sure that we have a successful product. Because you're right, content's king. So not only the words, which, again, I'm not a big reader, so I'm more of a picture and video kind of guy. That is content also. So assets in terms of images, in terms of video, helping people, we were on a video shoot yesterday, kind of going through the story of, what we wanted to portray and really becoming efficient in, all right, we want a 3-minute video for the website, but we want to record it in a way to value engineer and save money that we want 10-second clips we can use on social media as well. So, we're really trying to figure out how we can make things very efficient without going full production.
Yeah, I love it. Before we move into the speed round, well said, Blake. I just want to make one comment. We were talking about movie theaters earlier. DoorDash, you can order MJR popcorn and everything from the concessions.
I know. I saw
and
that.
So we did it. We watched a family movie the other day. We ordered like a huge popcorn, right? All the candy, and it was great. So
that's cool. That's very cool.
A quick plug for the popcorn.
Good for them. You know what? Good for them for pivoting into that.
Yeah. It was great. It was a great pivot. All right, Blake, quick speed round. Finish this sentence. The one thing people need to do to finish 2020 strong is?
Wow. What do they need to do? Oh, it's speed round. I got to go fast, huh? Well, increase.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would say, figure out.
Hard, fast rules
there. Yeah, make up revenues.
Okay, good. It's good.
What's the number one hardest sales lesson that you've learned?
Communication, making sure we stay on top of certain clients so things don't get stagnant.
It's a good one.
If there's one piece of advice that you would give a college graduate today who's walking into a world that's a little bit different as to how to sell themselves for whether it's their business or a job, what would that be?
Stay in college as long as you can. No responsibilities there. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
The one thing is, I would say clean up your social media, polish yourself, make sure that you are representing yourself as if you were, more mature. I think maturity is key. Anyone coming out of college, the maturity level is the most important. So making sure that you present yourself in a manner that you're ready to go, I think is probably the best thing you can do.
Great. All right, Blake, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, who your ideal client is, and
absolutely. So all small, medium, large businesses, we look at everything. You can get a hold of us directly. Blake at bmgmediaco.com is my direct email, or 248-763-5700. It's my direct line. Let us know whatever you need, or contact Jeff or John. They have my information as well. They can bring the lead in, and we're here to help. So whatever we can do for any businesses, we'd love to talk.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment on you, Blake. Your work is incredible, but more so than your work, one of the things that I'm always impressed with is your follow-up. I pride myself on key follow-up and returning every call, my accessibility, every call, every email, every same day, and you do exactly the same thing. So anytime whether I email you, call you, text you, I mean, everything is immediate. And I know, so you do a great job of making everybody feel
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
My grandfather instilled that into us. I said, if you can't get back to someone within 24 hours, you have no business, being in business. And I take that to heart. I'm very responsive. And if anyone doesn't respond back to me in a few days, I lose all respect, to be honest with you, because nobody's that busy.
100%.
I agree. That's why. And I love that you gave your cell. I give my cell all the time. I mean, whether I'm interviewed or giving a talk, I give my cell all the time because I never want anyone answering my phone. I want people to know that I'm accessible and approachable, and I think that's the
absolutely. Well, you never know what comes out of it. There's so many different opportunities. If it's not today, it's potentially in the future, and we get that all the time. Yeah, you're building. You're planting the seed.
Yeah, right. And I know Jeff's the same way. I know we're just focused on you, but Jeff, you're the same way, and it's critical. All right, guys. Blake, a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you guys again.
Thanks for all the rich content. Jeff, take us home.
Thanks for being on. And just one other follow-up comment too. I mean, to have somebody like you who's got vision and who cares and who's constantly thinking about putting themselves in the shoes of the client is super important. Obviously, being accessible and all that is great, but somebody who is, in my opinion, trying to master their craft and be somebody who is the best at what they do, and I see you that way, is always amazing to see, and kudos to you. And
I appreciate it.
Being on the show, man. Had a good time.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll see you guys soon.
The rest of the day and weekend.